What's up, everybody? This is Fatty Catty, and I just watched something that's just pure AIDS. You all need to share in my pain. We're going to be watching a video from a channel called Knowing Better, and he really doesn't know better at all. Like, at all. Okay, stream health, whatever. So, we're going to get into it right now. Let's turn on display capture. And here he is. So this guy is going to try to tell you why 4K is bad, essentially. But I'm just going to respond to what he says, essentially.
To home entertainment is the 4K TV, and they're stupid. Now, if you didn't figure this out from my self-driving car video, I'm taking a holy grail.
I watch things at double speed, so I need to fix that.
Of Reddit and deconstructing it in order to talk about vision and maybe flirt a little bit with color finally. 4K TVs will happen eventually, but they're kind of wasted on most people. So let's get started.
Can't wait to see his evidence of that. I'd love to see your evidence of why they're stupid. Oh wait, you didn't say anything. You just said they're stupid. Thanks. Great argument so far.
Now this is currently being filmed in 1080p at 30 frames a second. Actually 29.97 frames per second, but 30.
In the beginning, he kind of just goes through different resolutions and stuff.
So let's take a step back and see how we got here.
He's going to go to 480i.
This is 480i.
Okay, this is stuff that
you've likely seen something like this.
Doesn't really
VHS
matter.
tapes weren't really a thing until topped by having a Diet Pepsi ad.
Okay.
DVDs, and you probably didn't notice much of a difference. DVDs are video games. Most people's first DVD player was the PlayStation 2, and the must feel old yet? So the transition.
So this is all superfluous. What are you saying? It's just a okay history lesson on video resolution.
From VHS to DVD was fairly quick. People were starting to transition to high definition screen.
Okay.
What they're saying is black bar.
Come on.
Which is also known as full high def.
Okay, so I know you guys are probably like, well, he hasn't said anything that matters yet. I know, but he says things that matter, just they don't because what he says is stupid. Give it a sec.
The Blu-ray versus HD division. So they were really only competing to see who could get the most to buy separately. God, that was stupid. There were no must-haves or firsts when it came to Blu-ray. Why did I just talk you through the history and evolution of video formats? Because we're already talking about upgrading to the next formats, again spearheaded by the video game consoles, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Before we get into the resolution changes, let's talk about frame rate. As I said, this video is being filmed and shown to you in 30 frames per second or FPS, but there's been a recent shift to 60 frames a second. Yeah.
It's not really a recent shift to 60 FPS. 60 FPS has been going on in video games since I think COD 4, maybe even COD, just World at War. 60 FPS has been a thing for a long time. Right now, I am watching this on a 240 hertz monitor, which in most games I play, I get over 240 hertz, depending on settings.
I know, we round up, I don't know why. Frame rate is kind of a sacred cow in the gaming community and on Reddit.
It's not a sacred cow. It's a thing that exists. It's a measurable fact. It's not.
And they'll defend it stronger than the Second Amendment people, so...
He has a video about the Second Amendment that I might talk about because he clearly doesn't understand what he's talking about.
I have to tread lightly. Let me start this off by saying that the average person watching my video, whether you're a subscriber or you found this on Reddit, is not the average consumer. You're probably an early adopter.
Yes, I'm a very early adopter. I do have a 240 hertz monitor. Puts me in the 0.01% of individuals who consume video content. I'm aware. There's literally no video content on YouTube for my screen.
The techno elite, not the average consumer. Remember when you thought 3D TV, Google Glass, and VR were going to be a thing? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Now, the human
VR is going to be a thing for starters, but that's a completely different aside.
Eye doesn't really see in frames, you see pretty much continuously. But beyond a certain speed, things can move too fast for you to notice. Now, depending on your source, at rest, that seems to be about 45 to 72 frames.
That is completely superfluous and false. Let's go over here. Oh, crap, come on. Oh my gosh, work. There. I hate this thing. Okay. So, cones, rods, blah, 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 blah. Get down here. What does it say? The United States Air Force, in testing, their pilots for visual response time used a simple test to see if the pilots could distinguish small changes in light. In their experiment, a picture of an aircraft was flashed on the screen in a dark room at 1/120th of a second. Pilots were consistently able to see the afterimage as well as identify the aircraft. The simple and specific situation not only proves the ability to perceive one image within 1/120th of a second, but the ability to interpret higher FPS. So, let's keep watching.
Per second. Let's go with 72. That means just sitting there on your couch eating Doritos, if something appears on screen for 1/72nd of a second.
That's not accurate, because when you're sitting on your couch eating Doritos, your brain is usually focused on something that you're watching. At rest would be like actually resting.
Odds are you'll miss it, unless you know where to look and you're waiting for it. That's at rest though. Your perceived frame rate changes with your arousal level. If you just went for a run or are being chased by a dinosaur, or more likely you're hopped up on caffeine, you can see up to 120 frames per
Like I said, completely inaccurate.
second. And if you're a superhuman or a fighter pilot, or you're on cocaine or something, you might be able to see up to 240, but
Okay, so now he says, oh, if you're superhuman or you're hopped up on cocaine, you might be able to see up to 240. Guess what? I'm not a superhuman, not on cocaine, and I'm not a fighter pilot. I can see 240 hertz all day long. Not only can I see it, but I can distinguish differences. Like, when there is a frame drop, I notice it before I look at the numbers, because I'm like, wow, this feels weird. Then I look at the numbers, and oh my gosh, it's dropped to 225, or it's dropped to, I don't usually, to, like, within the, like, 5 FPS buffer is what I'm going to say is the, like, the sweet spot. Like, if I'm running at 240 and it drops to, like, 237, I'm not really going to notice something. But what he's talking about is just absolutely incorrect. Like, categorically false so far.
no one has been able to reliably do it beyond that. If you still think that you can, you belong in a lab or something because you're some sort of mutant. So again, you don't really see in frames per second, but
I don't belong in a lab.
if something appears and disappears above a certain frame rate, you probably won't notice. 30 frames per second was established as the standard decades ago, but I'll get to why in a moment. 60 frames per second, on the other hand, seems to be where the economic use of energy and human perception meet. PC gaming has been at or above 60 frames per second for decades now, and most computer screens are 60 Hz, so they top out at 60 frames per second. If you brag about your 150 frames per second on your 60 Hz screen, I won't ruin the illusion.
What will you ruin? Please tell me. Because if we'll look at this wonderful graphic that I stole off of YouTube, which I'm going to explain now. So this is your monitor refreshing. Your monitor refreshes at a set rate. This is your PC generating frames. This is time. I know, it's a really good graphic. Well, it's actually a stupid, simple graphic I could have made myself, but, stealing it was easier. So let's say you get like a couple, extra frames in here. So basically what happens is when you're running at a higher refresh rate than what your monitor can actually pick up, what you get is you don't get higher perceived FPS, but you get more fluid responses from your monitor. Because let's say you're running at this current FPS, whatever it is. I don't care. So each time this refreshes, you'll go from whatever was here first, you'll go to this one. Then you'll go from whatever was here to this one. You go from whatever was here to this one. Here to that one. Because it'll pick the most recent frame. Now, let's say you're running at a lower FPS. We're going to remove all the junk that I've put here. Let's say your computer's running, you're going to grab this frame. Now, it's going to grab this frame. Then it's going to grab this frame. This will not be as fluid. So running at a higher refresh rate than your monitor is always good, because it'll just be more accurate to what you're seeing it'll be more accurate to what is going on in game. So what you see on screen will closely mirror what is happening in game. So it's always better, regardless of your monitor. If you have a 1 Hertz monitor running at 1,000 Hertz, running 1,000 FPS in game, it's going to be better than doing it at 1 FPS. So let's keep going.
For you. For a while after HD came out, they started to push different frame rates. Is frame rate. First it was 60, then 120, and then 240, but then they stopped because the average consumer was complaining. Why would that be if we don't really see in frames per second? Because of the soap opera effect. The soap opera effect is when things look too crisp and too fluid for real life, giving it an eerie look and causing
Okay, I don't know where he got this from, so I decided to look up the soap opera effect because, you know, you look for things when you want sources and stuff. And also, so the soap opera effect I could not find here, like, at all, like where he found the soap opera effect. So he did source the, like, Steam, which he talks about later, but the soap opera effect right here, the soap opera effect is a TV. It's something that happens in your TV. It's image smoothing, which basically means that your TV takes the previous frame and, like, messes with it a little bit to change motion blur. But people don't dislike higher frames per second. I don't know what he's, like, reaching at here. It's kind of weird, but continuing.
Camera isn't set to film above 30 frames a second, so let me, there we are. Okay, here's my hand over here, and now I'm moving it over here. You probably didn't notice anything weird, but here it is again side by side with 30 frames a second. Notice how there is no motion blur? So the soap opera effect makes things look like they're moving in slow motion.
There's still motion blur if you focus on it because it's a very low frame rate.
But at regular speed. I know, it's weird, which is why it gives people motion sickness. The soap opera...
It's not weird, it's just how the human brain works. Maybe if we, like, looked up things instead of just calling them weird, we would have a better understanding of science.
Effect doesn't really affect video games because A, it's not real life, so nothing really looks all that strange, and B, they program in motion blur. So manufacturers have kind of stopped with the 240 and they're sticking to the 120 and 60, with 60 likely being the new standard. However, your frame rate isn't uniform across your entire field of vision, which I'll get to in a moment. The next big shift is to 4K or Ultra HD, which is a stupid name, by the way. It's just something they came up with in a marketing meeting in order to make it sound more epic. Remember the naming conventions from before?
That's how all naming works. It's all marketing. Okay, so that was some things that he said that were blatantly false in this video. Like, extremely false. And there his undergirder for all of his argument is, I've never experienced these things, and I don't really cite sources for what you can see. Also, I ignore evidence to the contrary, so that's it's not worth it, man. You shouldn't get it. It's like someone saying, you can only drive 65 miles per hour on a highway, so any car that goes above that is completely unnecessary. It's such a dumb argument. It's a disgusting argument. It's ugh.
From your TV, or at least you should be. Actually, the myth that if you sit too close to your TV screen, you'll damage your brain is perceiving depth, even though everything, whether it's TV, that means each individual pixel is 1/3 of a millimeter wide. Put a dot on a piece of paper only 1/3 of a millimeter wide and then put it 10 feet away. Okay, you'll probably still see it because it's a black dot on a white piece of paper, but okay, you know what I'm getting at. But you know what? There's been a single black pixel right here for the last few seconds. Go back and watch it again. You probably didn't.
Maybe the reason that we don't see it is because your focal point where you're, directing our eyes to focus is right here. You retard. Okay. So, for his, put a pixel on the screen. Oh, wait, you probably can see it. Like, that's the whole point. You can see it. Like, you clearly can see something that is smaller. So, if you have lots of these things on the screen and they're depicting motion, like, you are going to be able to see things more crisply. Is it going to be cost effective for you? I don't know what your budget is. But what I do know is that your body can handle it. You're not going to be some super freak mutant because you're watching things on an 8K TV. If Mr. Knowing Better can't afford a 4K monitor, okay, but don't tell everyone on the planet, well, you don't need 4K. You need whatever you can afford and what you want. Like, that's kind of how, things work. Like, aside from, like, food, water, and shelter, everything else is just want. Let's be honest here. You don't need any monitors. I mean, you don't. So when he's like making these arguments from need, it's stupid. So let's just keep going. I don't even know if I'm going to finish this because he's annoying and I don't like him. And he looks smug and it's ugh.
Didn't notice. And this is 1080p. Do you really think you would have seen it if it was a quarter the size? Now get this, there are 8.3 million pixels on that TV, and there are only 6 million cones in your eye. But that isn't the whole story because each pixel is actually 3 pixels in one, red, green, and blue.
So I hope you know what he's really getting at here, because your eye, we're going to go back to this handy dandy little bit here, has the effective resolution of about 52 megapixels, which is a lot. A lot. It's like 256 4K not 4K televisions, 256 1080p monitors lined up. But you don't see in that because, you've less, your rods are centralized in certain spots, and then you also have your optical nerve connects at a certain point. So your effective resolution is a little bit above 5K or a little bit. It's like, okay, it's complicated, but what it boils down to is it's not 4K. It's above 4K. It's quite above 4K. And then also when you focus on a particular spot, you can see like way, way above 4K when you're like intently focused on one area. So it doesn't invalidate the use case of even a 16K screen. Like, just because your periphery vision will not be able to see it. Like, it's stupid. He's just saying, oh, well, I don't see the practical purpose of this. So, people aren't going to notice a difference. And, I can't see with my eyes. So, and 553,000 people have seen this video. Let's say he's only convinced half the people that you only can see 120 frames per second and you never need to look for anything else ever again. That's 200,000 people, 250,000, 276,000, something. I don't really feel like actually doing the math. But a lot of people that are just misinformed now because this idiot doesn't know what he's talking about. So yeah, this was just me going on a rant, and I'm done. I don't feel like continuing. I've watched the whole video through multiple times. Let's see, what was this one about? That was the Air Force. I want to make sure I've covered all my... This is the 52 megapixels is your eye. There's a lot of math in here. I recommend that you do read this. It's a lot of information about your eyes right there. What is this? That's the soap opera effect. I'm just making sure that I hit all of my... Okay, so that was all the important things. So this guy's an idiot. Don't listen to this guy. He doesn't know better. If you guys want me to do a video on his Second Amendment video, like this video. I didn't feel like doing a fully edited video because I'm working on other stuff, and I didn't think it was an effective usage of my time to devote this much time to someone who's just spewing BS, and he's not incredibly successful. So, I mean, yeah, he's not like a multi-million subscriber video where it's channel where I'm like, oh, I need to, form my arguments really well and then present them in a very well-edited way so that, hopefully I can show that he's full of crap. Now I'm fine ripping him to pieces this way. So this guy is completely full of crap. Don't subscribe to Knowing Better. Don't, take what he says on any topic to heart. I think I've shown quite a few examples in this video where he was just completely full of garbage. One thing that he does do rather well is he went through the history of, you know, this is 480i, this is 480p, 1080p, this is what interlaced is, this is what progressive is. Like, that was nice. But then everything else he said was BS. So, have a great night. I'm tired after that.